Here is our Buckwheat, and this is a 5-year-old 16 three-hand thoroughbred gelding by Kettle Corn, and he is out of an Arch mare. And Buckwheat has been here now for a few weeks. I put a bunch of rides on him, and so he came out today to do an introduction to basically ground poles and little teeny jumps. And you're seeing our little dance here at the mounting block. It is still rather warm and humid in Maryland, and the flies are just like out of control. And for whatever reason, when I'm getting on every single horse, the flies just seem to be attacking the horses under their bellies, and it makes them all extremely irritated. So that's the little dance you were witnessing. But actually, he is fabulous to get on, and you can see that as soon as you're actually getting on, he's very good. So anyway, he came out feeling really good today. I was very pleased with just sort of his progress in general, and I was feeling really good about introducing him to some little poles and tiny jumps today. He just came out ready to rock and roll, and he feels good in the bridle, and he's moving nicely, and everything just felt really succinct and just sort of flowing like you would hope. I rode him yesterday, and I felt like I had to like get after him a little bit about just being a little bit rounder right from the start, and getting off one shoulder or the other. And so yesterday I felt like I was a little bit tough on him, but then it definitely worked because today he came out and he just felt fabulous. So obviously he took our discussions to heart the other day, and I'm really happy with how he's progressing. So Buckwheat has actually done a bunch in the last week or so since I've made a ride of him, a ride video of him, excuse me. I actually took him to Buckworth with me when we cross-country schooled cats on Saturday. He came along. I just sort of felt like, I've got a trailer going anyway, might as well bring one more horse. So he came along for the ride. I did get on him, and we sort of trotted around the field for a couple of minutes, and he was very good. I had the crazy thought in the back of my mind that maybe we would introduce him to some tiny little jumps and things, but when we got there and started trotting around, and I did walk and trot him over a couple of like teeny logs and ground poles and things, but it was obvious to me that I was asking for way too much, and I just thought that it's like always a gamble, right? You have to push a little bit in order to make progress, but it just felt like I was making a gamble that just wasn't worth it. Like I was more likely to freak him out, or worst case scenario, give him an experience that wasn't positive and confidence inspiring, by sort of asking him just to do too much at once in a crazy circumstance. So I sort of backtracked and tried very half-heartedly for a couple of minutes, but it just felt like it was just too much. And his brain was just sort of spinning, and it just didn't feel like a confidence-inspiring ride. So we backed off, and then that was it. So then we started from scratch again today, home in the ring, obviously, where he's comfortable now. He's been here for a couple of weeks. He's very settled in. So I am glad that I made the decision I did not to push it, because at the end of the day, especially with these young green horses, they're so impressionable. It's just the goal of every ride, no matter what you're doing, has to be to give the horse a confident ride and to make them feel good about themselves and better than they did before they started that ride. So anyway, that's the goal. I am going to make a tiny little video out of that cross-country schooling trip, because he was great about all the things. Like he stood at the trailer. He did go for a trot around the field. He loaded, and we got video of all that stuff. So I'm going to make that little video. But for all intents and purposes, this is his introduction to going over sticks. So we took our time, and first we just did a little trot warm up, and then we walked around over some of the things. He was very good for that. And then, of course, after we walk over everything, then we'll pop into the trot and start trotting around. And he was good, because he really, actually, for such a big horse, he really pretty easily took to cantering over things, actually. So we ended with some cantering things, which was quite good. I actually felt like it was necessary for him to sort of jump from trotting to cantering things, because he wasn't really figuring out, I don't want to say he wasn't figuring out the footwork, but he wasn't figuring out sort of the intention of jumping across the jump. He was sort of like jumping up in front, but not finishing the jump behind when we were trotting over things. So when that happens, of course, I give them a little bit of time to see if they'll sort it out on their own. It didn't really feel like he was. And then, of course, it's not feeling very comfortable for him because he's sort of like not finishing the jump behind. So it's just sort of an awkward feeling motion. I'm sure he's not enjoying that feeling. So then I sort of skip to, okay, well, since that's happening, let's see if we can start coming to things in the canter, because of course, when you're coming in the canter, that just makes the whole motion much more natural for them to sort of push from behind and jump across and land sort of going somewhere versus landing stalled out on the other side. And so that was actually really effective, and that was definitely the key for him. So he's going to spend some time figuring out coming in the canter, and then he would be one who, a couple weeks from now, when he's really sort of figured out that whole motion of jumping across and not just up and getting hung up in the air, then he should go back and start trotting over things again. But I will say, even though he was a little bit confused about the motion of trotting over things, he was super brave. He was super willing to do it. I mean, and that's really all you can ask for is just, their willingness to give it a try. And then from there, if they're struggling with something, it's up to me to try and figure out a path that will lead them to, a place where it feels good. And I think we achieved that today. I hope we did. He certainly felt pretty confident at the end of it. And here I'm really just thrilled with how his warm-up looks. I mean, he looks relaxed, he looks happy, he's traveling forward, he's in a nice shape. So this was all good. So then I thought we would just add on a little bit more. So, like, if you see there, maybe you need to go back and watch it, on rewind. He just sort of doesn't quite finish the motion of the jump. He does it fine with his front end, but then his hind end just sort of doesn't keep coming across, and so that results in this feeling of sort of like landing stalled instead of landing traveling, which is why you get that moment of like coming up against the contact because his hind end just feels sort of stuck on landing. So that's why, because he did that over that cross rail, that's why now here I'm just going right into the canter a little bit, trying to help him figure out this footwork or really just the motion of traveling across the jump and finishing the jump with his hind legs. And so then we came back in the trot. So it's not like you're always going to canter every single thing or you're always going to trot every single thing. You're going to go back and forth a little bit. I thought that time was a little bit better. Definitely could be a lot better, but slightly improved. And then there, sort of the same thing happened. Like, okay, not terrible, but again, didn't quite finish coming across with the hind end, which leads to that moment of inversion a step after the jump because he's sort of landed like a bit like a pancake behind. So here, when I am coming in the trot, I'm just thinking about having a really forward trot. Just keep coming, coming, coming. And actually, that was a lot better. And some of these turns are actually kind of short turns. And so I'm really just trying to think about keeping my leg on, keep pressing through the corner so that I'm not losing momentum. I didn't really like the way that he landed from that coop. So now we're here in the right canter. We're going to try and suss out coming off the right canter a little bit. This horse has a fantastic canter, so the canter work will surely help him to figure this out. And that was quite good. I'm not sure why I lost my balance. That was sort of embarrassing. But he was very good there, and that was much more the shape and the motion that we want. And so was that. Good boy. And I like his expression here. He's still looking relaxed. And then actually, not the greatest distance in the world, but I thought that was an improvement coming to that crossrail on the canter. He did not land with any inversion, so that was better. And that was better there to that coop, actually. That was much better, and that was out of the trot. So I think this is about the point where I was thinking that things are starting to flow a little bit. He's starting to sort of understand the idea of what's up here and what we're going for. So not perfect to the cross rail, a little bit of, having to figure out the footwork there, but it was fine. He's trying really hard. He's staying straight. He's keeping coming. He's doing everything that I'm pointing him at. There are no complaints from me here. He's being a really good boy. And that was actually pretty good. Tiny, tiny little moment where he comes above, but I thought that the footwork and the impulsion were great. Yeah, and I'm quite happy with that. And he was very clever about getting the change over the coop. I thought that was really good. I was sort of starting to feel like he was understanding the crumbs that I was dropping for him. And so there he did the same thing. Cute little jump. Did the change over the coop. Very good boy. He has a great canter. Good boy. He's a pretty big horse. He's 16 three hands and he's also quite long. So this is a lot for him. I'm asking him to sort of package up a little bit. And so it's a big ask. And that was actually a really good trot over that cross rail. It's sort of a shame that Billy was on the other side of it, so you couldn't quite see it, but it was good. It was probably the best jump that he's trotted up to this point. And actually, that was quite good too. So he's starting to put it together as to what makes more sense, what feels better, and that was really good. Good boy. I feel like I'm really picking on him in this ride video, but actually, I'm quite thrilled with him because I thought that he just tried so hard and he was so willing to keep coming. And so there, obviously, to that raised flower box, we just like had a total miss on the distance. But what a good boy. I mean, they have to figure this stuff out. That's going to happen. And he just figured it out and he kept coming and he stayed straight. And my goodness, he's just going to keep going and he's going to do it again without any hesitation. So, I mean, what a good boy. That was really good. I think that might have been where we called it a day. Oh no, we cantered over to this. Okay. And that was good too. And he even tried to do his lead change. He got a half change over that. That was really good. So he made huge progress in the ride from start to finish. I was thrilled with him. This is just him on cross ties getting ready before I got on. He was funny because he was grumpy about, well, he wasn't grumpy. It's not like he was putting his ears or anything. He was confused by the hind boots at first. We had a couple minutes after I put the hind boots on where he was just holding up one hind leg and then holding up the other hind leg, which is very normal. Even though I'm sure all these guys have obviously had on hind wraps and stuff, but they all have their little moment the first couple times you put hind boots on. But he is very good standing on cross ties. He's great for tacking. I actually felt like when he first came, he would make a couple of grumpy faces sometimes on cross ties, but he's actually gotten so much better. He's really settled in and he's being a good boy. I'm really happy with him.